What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. I have a special video for you today because we're going to be taking a look at the Steam Deck, and this is the 512 gigabyte version of the Steam Deck. Let's check it out and tell you all about it. Alright, my name is Taylor, welcome back to the channel, and this, like I said, is the Steam Deck 512 gigabyte model, and it shares very similar specs to all the other models, and I'll put those specs up here. Mainly the big one is that it's an AMD processor with a 4-core, 8-thread, and it runs between 2.4 and 3.5 gigahertz, which is pretty healthy. It's got 16 gigs of LPDDR5 RAM, which is nice. It's got a PCI NVMe drive, 512 gigabytes, and it is a Gen 3 drive. This one is an X4 drive. Some ship with X2. That's just going to depend on the model number that you get. E13 is X4, E08 is X2. This is the X4 model. All Steam Decks have a 1280 by 800 screen, which is a 16 by 10 aspect ratio, 400 nits of brightness, and the 512 gigabyte edition has a special screen. It is an anti-glare screen, so it has like a anti-glare coating, if you can see there. So it's not going to be as glossy as other Steam Decks. It's going to be more of a matte finish on the screen, but it is going to help reduce those glares. In addition to purchasing the top tier model, you get a case which holds the Steam Deck. It has like a little tongue. You can lift it up and pulls the Steam Deck right out. And it's pretty high quality. It's got some nice zippers. The only thing is that there's nothing to hold the Steam Deck down, so be careful when you lift it up that your zippers are zipped, or else your Steam Deck is going to flop out on the table or on the floor and it could get damaged, so just be careful. It also has a little loop on the back where you can tuck in your charger, which is really nice. You can pack everything up in there, take it with you on the go. It's a pretty nice case. I like it a lot. Another thing is you get some custom keyboards, like for instance this keyboard that is a very retro and vintage Steam look. I usually use just the default keyboard, but if you want to change up your keyboard, you do have more options with the 512 gigabyte model. Which, speaking of price, is going to run you $650. So it's $650 for this Steam Deck. And to be honest, I was really on the fence about that. I pre-ordered it in July 16th of 2021. And I got it July 16th, 2022. So exactly 1 year I waited for this device. And when it came time to purchase, I was a little on the fence. But I went ahead and pulled the trigger. And this Steam Deck is really amazing. The software is going to be the heart of the Steam Deck, right? Like it is going to be one of the biggest factors in the experience of the device. So, I mean, if the software is unusable, it could break the experience on the device. The software is pretty good. You have a store, a library, a friends list. You have different places to access this via either the Steam menu on the left, which you can access system settings through, or there's a quick option on the right, which has things like notifications, friend list, battery indicators, some quick settings for some performance tweaks like brightness, Wi-Fi settings. All your quick menu settings are there. I really like that layout. It's pretty simple to get to. And then on top of that, you have the two buttons up top which control like in-game menus or just some special select options that you can use for various games, which brings up like maps and stuff. It's kind of like a secondary in-game menu. Some games utilize that. And the Steam OS experience itself on the deck is pretty good. It's usable. You can go to the store, you can go to your library, you can view your games. They have a recommended section for Steam Deck games, which is really easy to get to. And what I really like is they did a really good job with the compatibility transparency labels on these games. So green indicates that it is fully compatible with the Steam Deck. Yellow indicates that it might be compatible with Steam Deck, but you can go in and look at what they say might be an issue. Like sometimes it's just keyboard input, like, hey, you may have to bring up the keyboard and type something in. Okay, well that's fine. If everything else works, then what's the big deal? Other times there will be more info, like some inputs don't work or it might be mapped incorrectly. So they do a really good job of spelling out what might be incompatible with the system, or if it's green, then you're good to go. You can run it on the Steam Deck. There's also a desktop mode, so you can get out of the SteamOS completely. The Steam Deck runs Linux, so you can go to the desktop mode and you have a full-blown Linux environment. Well, with minor caveats, it runs on Arch, but Steam does lock some things down. So if you're expecting to do like web development on this device, it's not really going to work because Node.js just doesn't download. However, I did manage to install IntelliJ on here and write a Java program, so that's pretty cool. So there is some flexibility there. You can do some things that you can normally do on a desktop. So now let's go into hardware, because the hardware is going to be important for, navigating the software. So how does that feel? Well, that is a really good highlight of the Steam Deck, is the hardware feels solid. You immediately pick this thing up and you wrap your fingers around it, and those grips just contour to your fingers really well. They did a really good job there. Also, the Steam Deck has like these edges kind of dip in a little. And at first when you look at it, you're like, oh, that can't be very comfortable. But then you hold it and those dips just go right into the crease of your palm, and it's perfect. It just feels so good to hold. Also, when you wrap your hand around it, you will feel that there are back buttons on the back. They do feel nice, although I don't really find them very useful, neither in the Steam software or in games. I just don't really use them all that much, and they kind of are easy to press. So you will press them accidentally, which if you have them mapped to something could result in accidental clicks, or it could just kind of throw you off. It definitely throws me off sometimes. Other than that, the triggers on the back, the L2 and the R2 triggers feel amazing. These things on a handheld are really good, and they almost rival like the Xbox or the PS5. I'll even say like these are really good. The L1 and R1 triggers, they're okay. They feel a little firm and they're kind of long. I guess if you really want to wrap your fingers around them and hit them, then these are going to be perfect for you. The D-pad and all the X, Y, A, B buttons feel extremely solid. They are really nicely made. The joysticks feel very solid. They have a click in, feels very clicky, and they have capacitive touch on them, so it will know if you have your fingers on the joysticks. Now, I haven't ran into an application that really makes use of this, but it is kind of an interesting little feature of the Steam Deck. There is a vent up top, 2 volume control buttons, and the volume control buttons feel very solid. They're like some of my favorite buttons on the Steam Deck. 3.5mm headphone jack was going to be very important. It has a USB-C, and this is a very advanced USB-C. This is like generation 3.2. It can support 8K 60 Hertz or 4K 120 Hertz, so that's pretty cool. The power button is recessed into the chassis, and it is pretty solid. I really like it a lot. This is the only button that will wake the Steam Deck from sleep. So you can hit every other button on the Steam Deck. It will not wake up until you hit that power button. That is a really nice feature. And, oh yes, the trackpads. How could I forget those? Well, honestly, they're kind of easily forgettable because they don't really do all that much. You can navigate in the desktop mode really well with these. It's kind of like a laptop trackpad. But other than that, I find them annoying, honestly. In game, the palm rejection on these is not that great. So when I'm playing a game and I have my hands like gripping the device and I'm using the joysticks, it will detect some movement from the palm of my hand, which is no good. So every time I download a new game, I make sure to disable these trackpads because they're just not useful. I wouldn't mind if in the next version of the Steam Deck, Valve just eliminates these completely, because I don't see use for them in there. Like I said, they're annoying. It also has 2 speakers, 2 stereo speakers on the front of the Steam Deck, and they get very loud. And they get very quiet too. It's like a very wide range of sounds, very loud or very quiet. So if you want to use this in any environment, you really can. It gets loud enough to fill like an entire room, so that's good. It also has dual microphone array, and the microphone picks up my voice pretty well. I can be just sitting here playing it at like arm's length and the microphone will pick up my voice. Okay, now the big part, the gaming, right? Like, yeah, sure, we got software, we got hardware, but can this thing game? Yeah, it freaking does. This thing is so good at gaming. It is insane. Gaming at 1280 by 800 on pretty much every game, it doesn't really dip below like even 40 frames per second on like an average. Out of every game that I've played, I've tried Bioshock, which Bioshock 2 to be exact. Bioshock 2 gets about 100 frames per second, but that's playing at 720 because Bioshock is pretty old. It doesn't support the 16 by 10 aspect ratio, and it is a really great experience. Apex Legends, and this is like on high settings at this 16 by 10 aspect ratio, it plays phenomenally well. It's averaging like 50 frames per second, which is insane. That's Apex Legends. Like this is, it has to render like the whole scale of the world and everything. That's pretty crazy. No Man's Sky at enhanced graphics, which is kind of like medium graphics, it is getting an average of 50 frames per second on this device. Doom Eternal. Doom Eternal at full graphics on the Vulkan API is getting an average of 60 frames per second. That is insane. Hades runs on Vulkan 2, 160 frames per second. The Steam Deck really likes the Vulkan API. And then recently, Halo got compatibility for the Steam Deck. It is yellow, it's not green, but at least you can play multiplayer on it. And on low settings, I'm getting an average of 45 frames per second, which is just insane. Think about that. That is Halo, low settings, but I mean, at the screen resolution and size, everything looks good. It looks way better than the Switch, and it's Halo at 45 frames per second on Linux. Like, that is insane in and of itself. Halo on Linux on a Steam Deck. Guys, the gaming experience is really great on this device, and there are lots of games available. Battery life. Okay, so let's talk about battery life. Valve claims that there is 2 hours to 8 hours of battery life on the Steam Deck. I'm finding with all the games that I'm playing, I'm getting a little under 2 hours, maybe an hour and 45 minutes, which is under what Valve claimed. But I mean, that could be like a lot of variables. Like, I play at 50% brightness. It could be that it is really hot in Texas right now, and maybe that is kind of eating into the battery life. So there's some variables there, but personally I'm getting about an hour and 45 minutes, which isn't a lot, right? I really hope that that is something that Valve improves in the future with future iterations of the Steam Deck. Is I would really like to get that battery life up a bit. That would be really great. Another thing that I want to see Valve do in future versions of the Steam Deck is this Steam Deck would be freaking perfect with an OLED. Like, oh my goodness, just give it an OLED. With the amount of games that are on this, an OLED would just look absolutely stunning. It would help with battery life, and it probably wouldn't cost all that much more. But I don't know about supply chain issues, and Valve is already having trouble like getting these things out, so maybe OLED would put more constraints on that. But once things start ramping up and Valve gets established, I really hope there's future versions of the Steam Deck with OLED, because I'd probably get it. Like, this screen is, they claim it's IPS, and it's barely IPS. Like, if you look at it off axis just a little bit, the color shift, the brightness shift, I don't think you could be playing this and someone sitting next to you and comfortably enjoy watching you play the game, even though they claim it's IPS. This Steam Deck has really blown my mind, and I really hope you consider getting it. Even, you don't have to get the 650 model to really enjoy this. You can get the lower tier model with the less amount of memory, and you can always just use the SD card to upgrade it. I wouldn't say it's the fastest memory anyway, so Valve kind of has the experience where no matter what version you kind of get the same experience. So you're not really getting any faster memory with this, just a lot more, so you can put more stuff on it. But I mean, get whatever you're comfortable with, but I would highly recommend some version of the Steam Deck. All right, guys, let me know what you all think of this video in the comments below. Are you gonna get a Steam Deck? How did you like this video? Did I cover everything that you wanted to hear on it? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, please leave a like and share this with everyone. Everyone should know about this device. So share it with everyone, your friends, your family. Sub if you want to see more. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for all your support. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see ya.